Welcome everyone to tonight's In Conversation with Bridie, McKim and Hammond. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the many lands on which we meet tonight, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and to all people tonight. I am joining from Awabakal land on Lake Macquarie in New South Wales, and I'm Kerry Cumberford, the CEO of Accessible Arts, New South Wales Peak Arts and Disability Organisation. And welcome to our first In Conversation for 2020. This event was originally scheduled for March 24, but as we all know, our worlds changed drastically in March. So it's taken us a little while to be able to reschedule this and to present it online. And I would particularly like to thank Bridie and Roz for being available here tonight, and also to thank the City of Sydney, who's provided us, Accessible Arts, with ongoing support to present a number of our programs online. It's been a really exciting time for us moving online, and we're reaching a much wider audience with our programs, which is really fantastic. Our In Conversation program profiles artists with disability and their work, and it generally takes the format of a Q&A style event featuring an artist with disability interviewed by a leading figure from the arts and cultural sector. Bridie and Roz are two of the stars of ABC TV's fabulous new inclusive drama series, The Heights, the second season of which is currently playing on ABC, 8 p.m. Thursday night. So you can tune in a little later this evening. The Heights has been critically acclaimed since it went to air in 2019. It's a groundbreaking TV show for Australia in terms of providing diverse and authentic representation, and it's generating important discussions around diversity and disability. Which brings us to tonight's featured artist, Bridie McKim. Bridie is an actor with cerebral palsy who recently graduated from NIDA. She was cast in the first season of The Heights in 2019 in the lead role of Sabine, one of the first characters with disability ever given a lead role on Australian screens. And tonight, Bridie will be interviewed by her on-screen mum, Hammond, an accomplished performer, writer, with credits across feature film, TV and theatre, including Sean McAuliffe's Mad as Hell, Secret Bridesmaids Business, Irish, The Dish and Muriel's Wedding. I hope you enjoy being in conversation with Bridie and Roz. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Hello, everyone. My name is Hammond, and I come to you today from the land of the Bunwarong and Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And it is indeed my very great pleasure, in fact, my absolute delight to welcome my on-screen daughter and my very, very dear friend who joins us from the land of the Gadigal people of the Agora Nation. It is Bridie McKim. Hey, Bridie.
Hey, Rosie. How you doing?
Yeah, good. How are you?
So good. So excited.
It is so exciting. And thank you everyone for joining us. This is, I'm glad we finally get to do this because as Kerry mentioned, this was scheduled a few months ago before, you know, the 2020 train rolled on. And so it's nice to get a chance to chat. So, oh yes, look, this is a Q&A. So please, we're relying on your cues. So your questions can go, there's a little box down the bottom, Q&A. So if you wouldn't mind, you know, furnishing us with some questions, because I got nothing. No, we really need your questions. That would be great if you could help us out with that. But let's just start exactly where we are. You're in Sydney, I'm in Melbourne. We are both at the mercy of the slightly decimated arts industry, but slowly recovering. Talk me through your 2020 roller coaster.
Oh, 2020. Yes. It's been quite a year. I mean, it was quite devastating in March because I think, like yourself and like most people in our industry, we all had work lined up. There we go. And yeah, I was ready to hit the ground running and it was really exciting. And then, yeah, it all went to kaput. But that's okay. So lately I've been just seeing my physio a lot. That's been great. Going to the gym a lot because being disabled requires constant upkeep. Yeah, and just I'm really lucky. I live in quite a creative household, so we've all got our little projects going, and yeah, just keeping busy. And I've been working on accents a lot because the goal was always to be able to work overseas and on international projects at some point, because though we have an amazing industry here and it's incredible, there's more work to be done overseas as well. So just chipping away.
Yeah, great. And what accent are you particularly fond of? Or is it your US accent you're really trying to nail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was meant to go over to the US this year to do some hustling and do all that good stuff. So I was really working on that to be able to go over there and play that game. But alas, it's not happening, but that's okay. But yeah.
It's just being deferred a little bit.
Yes, just being put on hold.
Yes. Now, this time exactly last year, we were in Perth. Yeah. And we were, in fact, people may not know this, but Bridie and I shared a house while we were filming The Heights with our other dear friend, Mitchell Burke, who plays Ryan in The Heights. The three of us were flatties for the 6 months that we filmed there, which was pretty wonderful. And in fact, a Facebook memory came up today of you finishing a jigsaw in our lounge room, the very first jigsaw of which Bridie did a zillion. And I know there's lots of Heights people joining us today. And so please, give us your questions. And we thank you so much for loving our show as much as we love our show, because we really do adore that job. And would love to get to do it again. But first off, Bridie, let's, for those who don't know you or haven't read much about you, let's go back to young B. McKim and how she decided to become an actor. What path, how did this all happen?
How did it all happen? I guess I was a pretty theatrical kid. My family can attest to that. So I was born a triplet. So I was born in quite a chaotic house. And you had to really fight for some attention, for some limelight. And I guess we were always up for that challenge. And I was just obsessed with movies and films growing up. And we had this ritual. I grew up in a super sporty family, and I would play netball because my sister played netball, and I did everything my sister did. And I hated netball, and I was horrible at it because I can't catch a ball. But after we played netball, we would go home, get a hot chook, and get a DVD from the DVD store. RIP. And that would be my most favorite part of the week. So I just fell in love with anything on screen. I fell in love with actors. I became obsessed with just Googling actors and how they managed to get on screen, how they managed to get that job. And then I started doing drama in high school, and I just kind of allowed myself to kind of have a bit of a dream of going, maybe that could be me one day, maybe. And it was something I was always really passionate about. And then when I was 18, I was privileged enough to get into NIDA. And then once that happened, I was like, well, here we go. Guess it's happening. Let's make the most of it. And yeah.
And before you'd even finished third year, the whole Heights thing came a knocking.
Yeah, so Heights came a knocking when I was in third year, and I was really stressed out because my education was so important to me and I really wanted to graduate, but also this was a job that I just couldn't turn down. And I was lucky enough that NIDA really supported me, and of course the Heights production really supported me, and I was able to do both at once. So while we were filming season 1, I was also doing all my work for NIDA.
That's right.
Yeah.
Filming things in your tiny little hotel room.
Yeah, do you remember that room? It was so small. Yeah, it was good. It was good.
I mean, what luck, what extraordinary luck. And so how did, now it was Annie Murter-Monks, wasn't it, that was doing our casting, that
Yeah.
knew you, found you, cast you as, you know, the most incredible casting agent, for really casting her net wide for people. Now, I'm just going to, excuse me, you keep chatting, B, because I've got to figure out how to look at the questions.
Oh, okay. Sorry, what do you want me to say?
You're going to fill in time while I'm looking at
it. So, yeah, I mean, season 1 of The Heights was amazing, and it was a really intense experience because I had never done anything proper and professional like that before. And I was working across from the legend Ros Hammond, which was amazing. And
okay,
yeah.
That's enough, Phil. I got a question for you. All right. This is from Alexandra. Hello, Alexandra. Thank you for your question. My question is, I've heard that there is a thing called chemistry reads in the industry. Was there one for The Heights? And if so, how did it go? Did you click as mother and daughter duo immediately? I'm super nervous to ask this question. Don't be, Alexandra.
Don't be, Alexandra.
Over to you, B. McKim.
So yes, there are such things as chemistry reads. But I was living in Melbourne when I was not living in Melbourne. I was living in Sydney, and you, Ros, were living in Melbourne. I was living in Melbourne. So yes, so we didn't really have the luxury to do chemistry reads. But I distinctly remember the exact moment I met Ros Hammond, and we were it was the first kind of rehearsal and meet and greet with the showrunner, Warren Clark, and one of our directors, James Bogle. And I just remember sitting across from Ros, and she was just sitting there. Ros, you were beaming. You were absolutely beaming like that. It was that. Yeah. And I was so nervous. But we just had some great chats about the show and who we were and the characters we were going to play. And then I remember Rosie took me out on a drive. Do you remember this, Ros? To Fremantle. Yeah. And we had lunch and we just had good chats. And we were really lucky. We are really lucky because we really did click. And I think when actors do click, half the work is done. Absolutely. Once you have chemistry, you're good to go, and you can really trust the other actor and work with them and play with them and fly with them pretty much. And it makes the job an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. And I think also the fact that we have quite similar methods of working.
Yeah.
So that, we were quite simpatico with how we both work, how we both do a lot of homework.
Yeah.
And so I think that helps. I think that can be tricky when people have different kind of work ethics, but you and I are very on the same page.
Yeah. And especially in season 2, when we literally shared our home, that home, loved it. And Mitchell Burke, love him. It was just like such a delight to be able to work together and live together. And the three of us really fostered a life with each other for those 5 months of shooting. And it just made the whole experience really lovely and nourishing. And so many people on that show, pretty much all the people, were just a delight to work with. And we really became a tight-knit fam, which was great because that's what the show was about.
And I think that is one of the strengths of the show. And also you see it on screen. You see the love, and you constantly hear people say that you can see that actually all the characters really get on, because we really all did.
Yeah. And we're not just saying that. Actors just say that, but we're not saying that.
I've been doing this 30 years. It was a very rare and amazing job.
Yeah, it was great.
I have another question for you, B. From Mark, a bit behind here in the UK. Hi, Mark.
Oh, hi, Mark. Hi, Mark.
I got angry when Sabine tried to perform Eliza without any support. I wasn't sure anyone could have done those quick changes, for example. Where was the Velcro, the dresser? Okay, yeah. We did think that ourselves, but anyway. He felt that you imploded quite quickly. What was your feeling? Have you felt the same pressure as Sabine? Now, this is interesting because I know that as actors, we did talk to the writers and stuff at various points. Talk us through, and for those that don't know the storyline, which we will get to in a moment, about ableism, internalized ableism. But one of the thrusts of season 2 for Bridie was that she is cast as Eliza Doolittle, and through the rehearsal discovers that she can't get the quick changes. And no, I know, Mark, that they weren't Velcro. Anyway, Bridie, Mark's question is, have you felt the same pressure as Sabine? Particularly, with your NIDA generally, like talk us through that.
Yeah, I 1000% have. So to provide a bit of context for people who don't know, I did go to NIDA, which is a drama school here in Australia, and they teach classic conservatoire training where actors are taught to be actors and are taught to be blank canvases, and you're taught to be able to do it all and be able to do it all because we've got to be able to play everyone and anyone. Yeah. And I went to NIDA when I was quite young. I first went there when I was 18 and I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I wanted to be there so badly. I felt like such a small fish in such a big pond. To provide a bit more context, there's only 24 people in each class each year. So the chances of you getting in are minuscule. So I felt so privileged to be there, and I just wanted to lap all of it up. And you're put under the pump. And I think as actors, I think acting is it requires such teamwork. I think a lot of people just see you literally under a spotlight and it comes across as quite a narcissist profession. But in reality, you're such a small cog in such a big wheel. And so I would be a part of these productions with my peers and taught by my teachers and directors. And I would want to keep up. I would want to do exactly what all my peers were doing. And I couldn't do that, but I wanted to. So I think it's that kind of internal conflict that really got to me at drama school, and I really had to reconcile with that. And then I learned how to say no. I learned how to say, these are my access needs. This is what I need in order to flourish. And if I can't have those things, I cannot do my job properly. And, but it's hard when you already feel like you're lucky to be there, you don't want to be in the way. You don't want to make things harder for other people. It's complex, and Sabine did implode, and yes, there should have been Velcro. But things are hard to navigate. Things are very nuanced, especially when it comes to disability, and especially when you're the only disabled person in the room. And it's hard to convey what you're experiencing when you're learning it yourself.
Yes. And so was it then that in discussions with the writers that helped to feed into Sabine's storyline, particularly in episode 19, which was written by Nora Niasari and directed by Renee Webster.
Yeah.
And for those who, I think the UK's had episode 19. I hope I'm not giving any spoilers, but you're cast in Pygmalion, you can't do the costume change, and then you decide to pull out. Claudia takes you to visit with an actor played by the outstanding Adam Bowes, who we adored working with. And he confronts Sabine about her own views and says that she sees her disability as a negative and has to disguise it to fit in. And so how was that? So was that in a discussion with the writers that helped kind of feed that in? Because it really touched a lot of people, and we had a lot of feedback about that. So can you talk about how that came with the writers?
Yeah, well, I just had a great general chat with the writers. I mean, they're all incredible people and incredible at what they do. And I know they had I'm pretty sure they had other creative disabled consults on working with them as well. And yeah, I think internalized ableism is a huge part of the disabled experience, and something that we don't often talk about, because internalized ableism is so entwined with shame and trying to hide stuff and trying to fit in when you can't. And for people who may not have seen the episode or may know what it is, it means it's pretty much like internalized racism or internalized homophobia. So you internalize all the negative feedback or all the negative stereotypes or all the negative thoughts you have, and you internalize it within yourself, and it manifests in how you think about yourself, and it makes you feel really shit. So it was awesome to explore that in Sabine, because she is so young. And the thing about Sabine is that her disability, though a really important part about her, is not the only thing that is interesting about her, and is not the most important thing about it at all. And that is such a big part, I think, about disabled identity. So it was important to see Sabine confront that, and Sabine confronting her deepest, darkest, her insecurities, because I think a lot of disabled people have that. And Sabine was very lucky to have someone like Johnny, played by the amazing Adam, and lucky to have a supportive mother. But yeah, I think I don't want to speak on behalf of all disabled people, but I think that's a journey a lot of disabled people go through, because the disabled identity is still, like I said, so we don't see enough of ourselves reflected in positive limelights. We always feel like we need to fix ourselves, or we need to diminish our disabilities so people around us don't feel uncomfortable. But it's a part of the journey to accept ourselves, but also like celebrate ourselves. And that was something that Sabine had to learn.
So confronting and cathartic, I think, would be the experience of those episodes.
Totally. I mean, I guess one of the big joys about being an actor is being able to live vicariously through your character and have other experiences that you in your little boring life would never actually have. But then to have the opportunity to play something that was really close to my heart and really important to me was, like you said, confronting and very cathartic. But I think we all knew it needed to be done. It needed to be seen. We owe it to the disabled community to reflect an authentic disabled experience. And everyone has the right to see themselves reflected on screen. And it's a privilege to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads on to a question that somebody couldn't make it tonight. And so they wrote to me and said, do you think actors in their own lives get influenced by the personality of the character they perform, by traits that might either challenge you or you may aspire to? And I know we've talked about that, both playing fairly sassy women.
Yeah, I remember when we were working in season 2, like Rosie would come. I mean, we're both quite daggy. We're quite both dags. And Ros would come home and be like, oh, Claude is so fun. Had so much fun. And I would do the exact same thing coming home. But yeah, I mean, we play our characters every season for 5 months, and that's a long time to be playing someone. I think, yeah, there has to be a little bit of a bleed. I mean, I'm not method at all, but I think especially after season 1, we wrapped on a Friday and I was literally back in the classroom at NIDA on the Monday, straight back into it. And I remember some of my peers going, oh, right, okay, Oh, a bit of
Sassy.
sass is coming out now. All right. Interesting. Okay. But yeah, I think we always have to learn something from the characters we play, because we like inevitably have the same experiences that they have to have, but in a different kind of lens. So I think if you don't, I mean, acting's all about empathy.
That's
and
right.
yeah,
That's the joy of the gig, getting to play people, you know, with more confidence, more sass, and
exactly
cooler than you are. Oh, there's a question from Adam. Hi, Ros and Bridie, how are you? Will there be a season 3? I love the show. I love watching every week. Adam, we don't know. We are fingers crossed.
Fingers and toes.
Fingers and toes. We have absolutely no idea, no word. Daniel Monks has a question for us. Hello, Daniel Monks.
Hi, Daniel Monks.
Bridie, do you have any dream roles? And if so, what are they?
I've been thinking about this a lot, Danny. And you know what? It's a weird response. But my dream role would be, I want to play a character. This is a weird response. I apologize. But
Drum roll.
Look at, I want to play a character that gets to shoot a gun. And I know that's weird. I know.
Of all the things I thought you were going to say, it wasn't that.
But inherently, I'll provide more context. I would like to play more badasses. And Sabine is a badass. And I often do get to play badasses. But I have never seen a disabled person, and I'm sure there have been moments, but I haven't been able to see it, be like in a big budget spy movie. And I know that's so silly, but just to have the opportunity to play a badass that whips out a gun, like the dream.
Right. Okay, we're putting that into the universe for you, B.
Thanks.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Anu has a question for you, which is, what advice do you have for young adults with disabilities who would like to get into acting on the screen but haven't gone to NIDA? How do you get noticed? Okay,
great. Do it is the start. Go for it. I think I felt in my education and coming up to my career, and I think anybody who is a part of a minority feels this, I felt that if I wanted to crack the industry, I had to be the best actor there is. My talent, my ability, my skill had to like far surpass other people just to be noticed. Because there's no obvious opportunities for me. So really hone your craft, really hone your skill. Take classes, do workshops, do your research, network. I mean, you know, like my mum says, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Meet the people that try and meet people who are in the industry. I was lucky enough, Daniel Monks, who asked the question before, he is an incredible Australian disabled actor, and I met him when I was 19, and he just gave me so much passion and courage, and have someone who you can soundboard with, who you can aspire to be, reach out to people. There's this thing called cold emailing agents. So look up agents and look up the agents you like and the agents whose clients you like, and get your headshots, get your show reel, get your CV, email, knock on their door, call them. Acting is a hustle, and you got to hustle.
And as you say, classes, keep working away at it.
Hone
and I think
your skill.
That answers, Maddie, I think that answers your question too, which was advice for aspiring actors who just happen to be disabled. Athena asks, was internal ableism something you had to deal with personally? And how did you do that? You sort of touched on that.
Yeah.
if you...
I think, well, yeah, I definitely did. I think especially the thing about the disabled experience, I grew up in a family and there's no other disabled people in my family, and there was no other disabled people at my school. So the only representation of disability I ever saw was on our screens, where disability was seen to be pitied, or you had to overcome your disability, or it was shunned, or they were being bullied, or they were the victim. So you do internalize all that. And I think that internalized ableism is something I still grapple with. I think, but you've just got to make the decision to be like, right, that's there, but I'm not going to give that any attention or validate that at all. And I'm just going to do my thing and hope for the best. Yeah.
Great answer. Great answer. From Anonymous, what do you think about able-bodied actors playing disabled roles? And how do you think this can be prevented in the future? I definitely feel where the swing is away from that quite heavily.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really fascinating conversation. And I will say, of course, there have been amazing able-bodied actors giving incredible performances, playing disabled people. But I think what happens, and of course there's the argument of, well, in order for disabled stories to get made, you need a star to get it financed and for people to watch it. And if you don't have that star, then it won't get made. And there's the whole business side behind the argument. But I also think what happens is when we see an able-bodied actor playing a disabled role, what we see is an actor performing disability and performing and convincing us that character, that they are disabled within that role. And so really that only reduces that character to their disability and the performance of that disability. And that's what we really see in those occurrences within those characters. And I think that's a real shame because it reduces that character so much to fundamentally just that disability. But when we have a disabled actor play a disabled role, we don't need to perform our disabledness. We don't need to play that part of the character. That's kind of already there. So what we actually get to see is a really well-rounded character, because we get to really profile the character in the whole of their life and not just within the context of disability, because that's what it's like to be disabled. My disability is not the biggest part of my life or even the most interesting part of my life. And that's what we should be seeing within disabled characters on screen.
So great. Did you find, this is from Georgie. Hello, Georgie. Did you find that when you tell people about your disability, that they are more accommodating when you need breaks or other things like that? How did that work for you on the Heights? And Margaret, I guess.
I mean, there's always different ways people respond, because I think in a lot of instances, especially when I went to NIDA, I was the first disabled people a lot of my peers or even my teachers, first disabled person that they had ever met. So I think, and otherness is confronting. So disability can be confronting to some people. And so sometimes people didn't deal with it the best way they could have. But I was really lucky to have a really open, a really loving, a really accepting, diverse cast that I felt so supported by while I went through NIDA. And then by the time I got to the Heights, I had learned to stand up for myself and to stand up for my needs. And I always make sure it's in my contracts that these are my accessibility needs. It is in my contract. It is in legal documentation. So those needs need to be met. And usually within the industry, people are like, yeah, great. What do you need? Yeah, we can make that happen, because if I can do my best work, they can do their best work. So it goes
people only
hand in
know what
hand.
they know. So you need to tell them. Yeah.
Yeah. And it needs to be an open conversation. And I never like to get angry or upset at people who just don't know how to talk about it, because I don't think their ignorance is necessarily their fault. So I think, yeah, an open conversation is so important.
Thank you for that question, Georgia.
Thanks, Georgia.
How are things going there? This is from Ella. Hey, Ros and Bridie, how do you think Australia is going in terms of inclusivity in the arts and disabled actors playing disabled characters compared to the rest of the world? How can we be better?
Do you have any thoughts, Rosie, if that was part of it was pointed to you?
Well, I think we can always do better. I think we are at that wonderful turning point in terms of, you know, the global shakeup that's sort of generally happening, is that as we are becoming more aware of all of this and, you know, the majority of people are trying to do better, I think we will, you know, that will eventually filter, you know, into the business. Unfortunately, sometimes with the arts, we can be not a couple of years behind, but sometimes things get commissioned and they take ages to get on, and you know there can be sort of a lag with where the zeitgeist is at, and you know, people have to stay very on top of the casting and, you know, trying to bring it up to speed, really. Would you agree, Bea?
Yeah, totally. And I think also because the Australian industry is so small. I mean, we're so small, and there's so many people pining for opportunities, but also like fighting for money. So for things to get made and for things to be shifted in the right direction, it takes a while, because, you know, disability is still seen as quote unquote a risk because it's not quote unquote the norm. And risks are hard in our industry because risks cost money. But I think, yeah, as you say, I think we're heading in the right direction, but more work needs to be done, and it does need to happen quicker, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I definitely think things are moving in the right direction, and we just need to, you know, everyone kind of keep on top of the groundswell of the, you know, the momentum that is beginning to build.
Totally.
Sean from the UK. Hi, Sean.
Hi,
Love
Sean.
the show. Thank you very much. As someone with health issues that required adjustments at work, it's so good to see show how can be so hard to, sorry, excuse me, get others to accept it. Sorry, Sean, I've lost the thread of your thread. But the end of the question is, would you also like to come and work in the UK and Ireland? And the answer is yes.
We will both come.
We will both come. We will come together.
As a performance pack.
Yeah, exactly. How did you balance, now this is an interesting question from Anonymous. How did you balance schoolwork, acting, with any other things you had to do due to your disability? And I can attest to this last year as, you know, physio and the amount of things you needed to accommodate around the already kind of hectic schedule.
Yeah, I mean, being disabled, honestly, is a part-time job. Just the upkeep of it is... but so yeah, it takes a lot of commitment, it takes a lot of planning. I'm very lucky that here in Australia we've got something called the National Disability Insurance Scheme, so it means I can access the supports I need in order to function and in order to flourish. But yeah, I need to be organized, and it's very easy to just get a bit lazy and be like, I don't need the physio this week, I'm fine. But I think just I always had to remember that I love the job I do. And in order for me to do that, I need to be functioning at the best level I can be at. So you've just got to put in the work, and that's what you do.
And yes, you did spend, it was kind of amazing. And the thing about acting is that sometimes schedules go absolutely crazy. And I always admired the fact that you had very good grace when schedules went over and you were forever having to cancel or shuffle physio appointments.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
Physio.
A lot of phone work.
Just got to charm the socks off everyone and you get through.
Which you do. Emily Dash says, thank you, Bridie, for your excellent and nuanced performance of Sabine on the Heights. Indeed. It is genuinely one of the best parts of the show. I agree, Emily. Sabine. Oh, golly, my reading's not good tonight. I do apologise. It is genuinely one of the best parts of the show, and particularly Sabine being in romantic sexual relationships. Which was a very big element of S1 and then did, of course, move into series 2. What is your dream storyline for Sabine? What would that be?
Oh, my dream story. Sabine gets a gun. No. No. My dream storyline for Sabine. My dream storyline. I want to see what Sabine does when. I want to know what she studies at uni. I want to know. I mean, I have my thoughts in my head, but I want to know what her career path is. Yeah, and I would love to see her navigate the workplace.
Yeah,
because the workplace is different to school.
What do you reckon she would do at uni?
A part of me thinks that she'd do something like political science.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then a part of me feels like she'd do something like social work, because I think, and something within community services, because I think all our characters, or even healthcare work, because all our characters learn so much from living in and around the towers, and maybe something within medicine because of her dear mother, Claudia. Yeah. I don't know. The possibilities are endless.
They are.
Yeah.
The writers are watching.
Yeah. Take notes.
Yeah. Roz, was Bridie the first disabled actor you'd worked with? What was that like? Yes, I believe Bridie was the first disabled actor I've worked with. And it was great. I think I was nervous before day one because, of course, I hadn't met Bridie. I didn't know what some of her needs might be. I didn't know if we'd get along, all the bits of, playing mother and daughter. But as I think you can glean from Bridie is a straight shooter. And so I think number one was that we just clicked. And then because she's, able to say what she needs, able to articulate so much about, the world generally, quite frankly, that I just think, it all rolled along pretty easily for us. We were extremely lucky.
Very lucky.
Very, very lucky. Keep those questions coming. Anybody else got another question? My mum and I are completely addicted to both your character storylines. I know lots of mums and daughters like
good.
Yeah, so good. We feel connected to them like old friends. How was the process? If there was a blooper reel, would it be filled of your antics or was it mostly professional? B?
No, we were very professional.
We were very professional.
We were horrendously professional.
No, we're not good for blooper reels.
Yeah, we never really starred in the blooper reels, did we? Which I was always a bit sad about. But I actually think what happens, we were working fast TV and Roz and I were very aware of that. We've only got an hour, if that, to shoot each scene, which is very quick. So we don't really have time at work for the antics. We save that for Friday afternoon knock-off drinks. But yeah, we would just lucky that we still love the work and still had a great time doing it.
Yeah, as you say, we never really made it to to the bloopers reel. Sorry, I was just laughing because Athene has just written a very funny comment, which is a potential storyline, which is Sabine has a breakdown and finds a gun and shoots a teacher. Okay, thanks, Athena.
Write it down. That's a good soap story.
Bridie, how did you feel playing the romantic sexual relationship for Sabine? Because it was a very big part of the character was her sexuality. Particularly with that S1 series 1 story.
Yeah, especially in season 1.
Did you feel the pressure to present it in a certain way?
To be honest, not really. I was actually really, really excited about that storyline because so often we see disabled people presented as asexual beings and not being sexual and not being sexually desirable. So I thought it was fantastic. We were seeing a young disabled person being presented as a sexual being she is. And even though it was a really complicated and nuanced and difficult storyline, I think it was, so important because we need to be presented as the sexual beings we are. So I was lucky, like it was a very supportive set. I always felt, extremely supported, and there were always open conversations, and I think it was done quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. Another suggestion for series 3, Sabine gets revenge on Dane with a gun. Love it.
And I have to say, I just need to defend Nicholas Donato, who plays
the loveliest
Dane,
fellow,
because he is the sweetest man in the world. Like, cannot even begin to explain how nice he is. Hands down. So hate Dane, please, by all means. I mean, he does kind of get a bit of a redemption arc, but shout out to Nick Donato. Beautiful boy.
Beautiful boy. What's your elevator pitch and how does it incorporate your disability? I always find it's the elephant in the room when I have interviews or meet new people. This person also has CP. I wondered if you have a good way to broach the subject with all your networking. Also, love the show. It's literally the only time I've felt represented on screen.
Oh,
thank you. I wish you'd put your name in anonymous, but thank you.
That's so nice, anonymous.
How do you broach the subject?
Means the world. The thing I've learned to do is just to present it, to not hide away from it in conversations. So just present it as matter-factually as you can. So because if I come across as comfortable when talking about my disability, which I am, it invites the people I'm talking to equally feel as comfortable with my disability. Because if you get really awkward and kind of like don't talk about it in fear of, all that good stuff that we've discussed, it can make the discussion harder for both yourself and the people you're talking to. Also, like, I have a laugh about it. I mean, being disabled can be funny, and of course I don't make a mockery of myself, but you've just got to normalize it because it is normal. It's a part of my life. Again, it doesn't define me, but it's an important part of me. And I expect the people around me to respect that.
Great. And I hope, Anonymous, that you feel that approach. As Bridie says, she goes straight in and to normalize it, I think is your big takeaway from that one.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Anika. Great apology if she's repeating a question. No, you're not. I'm wondering what question you both wish you were asked in these sort of settings or by journos. What things don't people ask you that you would like to answer?
You can
What you
start,
got,
Ross.
I don't know. What do people not ask that we wish? Who's going to win the seventh race at Flemington? No, I don't know. That's a curly one.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I do kind of hope I get to the point, though I think it's so important for me to talk about my disability and my experience as a disabled actor. I am really looking forward to a time where my work as an actor can be at the forefront of interviews and be at the forefront of discussions. And I love talking about my disability, but I can't wait for a time when there's so many disabled actors and so many disabled stories that we can just talk about disabled actors for the incredible work that they're doing. That's the goal.
That is a ripper answer. With the actor switch of Pav, did you find it easy to maintain our connections with him?
Rose?
Yes, we did. We got the wonderful Rupert Reed. We loved Marcus Graham. We were very sad that he wasn't coming back. And then we got Rupert Reed and we were completely delighted.
Yeah.
Pending COVID, B, what have you got planned for next year?
Pending COVID, the goal is more work. That would be great. That's always the goal. Always upskill, always learning, always trying to be the best person, the best actor I can be, and live a well-balanced, happy, content life.
Which you're doing admirably at this point, I must say, my dear.
You too.
Right, have we got any more questions? Oh, I think there's one more here. How do you go about creating realism in a scene? What are some things that help you connect to the lines and the energy in the scene? I think we were very lucky with our writing with that, don't you, B?
Yeah, we were very, very privileged with the writing we got. Especially our scenes and especially our characters. We got some really good, meaty stuff. But yeah, it's just classic actors' homework. Know your character, know the world you're in, know your objective, fight for what you need. But also in saying that, when you're acting, throw it away and just be with the person you're acting with, and just be present with them.
We have another question in.
Mm-hmm.
Bridie, I'm interested in what you said about disabled characters can be played well by able-bodied actors. What's an example?
What I was saying when I said that was that undeniably actors can give great performances when playing disabled roles. So like there's the classic example of Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot, or Eddie Redmayne in, what was that called? Yep. And a myriad of other examples, because there are so many examples of, actors giving great disabled performances. But it's just not good enough anymore. Frankly, it's not good enough. We have the right to be telling our own stories and being represented by ourselves on screen. But I don't want to take away from the great work and performances from actors beforehand, but from here on out, not good enough.
Yeah, great. Athena has written, B, are you open to read a script for a movie? Yes, she is.
Yes, I got time. So much time.
Danish Girl. From Lulu, Danish Girl. Was that the name of the film?
Theory of Everything. Danish Girl was the trans one, I think. I could be wrong. Yeah.
I don't know either. Now this is a question that I asked you the other day, in fact, B, and this has come from Nicholas. We are currently pushing for greater diversity in film, which is amazing. And we have talked about abled actors playing disabled actors. But how would you feel if, say, a disabled actor was to portray another disability? Bridie, to play someone who is a paraplegic. You and I just chatted this the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, I find this to be a really complex discussion and a really hard one. Because in an ideal world, disabled actors will be able to have the opportunity to play a character that has their disability. And a big part of that comes from, at the moment, disabled actors don't even have the opportunity to play able-bodied roles. So when there's a disabled role, let that role go to the disabled person that has that disability. They deserve that opportunity to work and to share and to tell that story. But on the other hand, if we can't get a disabled actor that has that disability, I guess the next best thing would be having a disabled actor who has a similar disability play that role. That would be, in theory, better than an able-bodied person playing that role.
Bridie, how do you feel about watching yourself back on screen?
Oh, not a fan. I mean, I always make myself watch it because I think you can learn from watching performances back. But yeah, no one should hear the sound of their own voice. No one should see their face from every angle imaginable. Like,
especially that one.
This one, in season 1. Why did I always manage to be like this? But yeah, it's an occupational hazard, I guess.
It does get easier.
Yeah.
It does get hard. You know, I've been doing this 30 years, so I've seen my face age a lot. And, you know, there are challenging times through that, I've got to say. But, yeah, you've got to be grateful. You're still working, I guess.
You're still working.
Liz asks, hello, Liz. While we've been watching The Heights, what have you been watching during COVID? And who are some of your favourite actors?
Oh. I recently rewatched Broadchurch because Olivia Colman is who I want to be when I grow up.
Same.
Yeah. So I have been loving that. I've been doing a Grey's Anatomy binge because I've never seen that before. And that just passes the time like no tomorrow. What else? I watched the first season of True Detective. What have you been watching, Rosie?
I just finished Morning Wars. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, Jennifer Aniston was fab. And Succession was my other big one.
I really want to watch that.
Oh, so good.
I don't have HBO.
Yeah, I bought it. I think I bought it from iTunes. I couldn't bear not knowing what was going on.
Yeah.
And Liz has written, time is nearly up, ladies. It is too. Oh, my goodness.
Of course.
Bridie, thank you so much for this, for allowing this opportunity to happen. It was such a joy and an honour to work with you. And I think everyone will agree you are so erudite and compassionate and clear thinking. And it's just a joy to chat with you.
Thank you, Rosie. And thank you for doing this too. I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. So I really appreciate you being here.
Such a pleasure. And Accessible Arts are, you know, wonderful. Please keep these kind of events happening because they're pretty fab, even via Zoom.
Yeah.